All right. Shh. For those of you guys worry about the chain rule and this one, yesterday we already talked about how to factor out the most negative, but today is a little bit harder. Okay, so today is gonna be a little bit harder. So I am gonna factor out the most negative here. Um, so first of all, I want to be able to take a derivative of a function. Now, I'm also going to talk about some simple algebra that no one talk about it in algebra 1 or algebra 2, and it's supposed to talk about it. So, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you guys can see stuff. Thank you, though. Okay, so what we're gonna do is take a derivative of this one. F of x equal to x squared square root of 1 minus x squared. You guys can ask me question, but just, unless you have question up. So if I want to take a derivative, it's gonna be not a long video. So, but you guys can ask like what you don't understand. So I'm gonna take a derivative. This is the chain rule and product rule at the same time. Do you guys see that? So this is the green part. So I want to ask you to take a derivative of this. So derivative of this is going to be the 2x. Is that okay? And then I'm going to write it in the rational exponent. Is that okay? Plus x squared. And this part is going to be 1 minus x squared to the 1/2. So it's going to be 1/2 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2 times negative 2x. And that's my derivative. Is any questions here so far? Understand? Okay. Now, we are done with derivative. Now we're going to talk about algebra. So I'm going to show you a different example on algebra. A lot of people don't know how to do algebra because the teacher is not taught you correctly on several things. For example, how do I factor something like this? How do I factor this? Okay. You are going to factor out. Okay. So you want to factor out x to the negative 4. Can you keep that door open? Close. Okay, so I can factor out the most negative. Once I factor out, what's going to be the first term? 1, because x to the negative 4 times 1 is equal to x to the negative 4. But the problem is, what will be the second term?
X to the negative 4 and x to the negative 2?
Yeah. What will be the second term? Why is it x squared?
Because you're removing a negative 4, so in turn you're subtracting a negative, so you're adding it?
Yeah, so remember, so just normal thing, right? If you factor out x4 minus x squared, if you take out x squared, you take out the most negative, because 2 is more negative than the 4. You take out a 2, you subtract this with 2, right? So you got x squared, and you subtract this 2, it becomes anything to the 0 power is 1. So that's really easy factoring. Now you're going to subtract whatever you factor out. So it'd be negative 2, subtract negative 4. So it'd be negative 2 plus 4, so it's equal to 2. So it'd be x squared. And then that can be 1 minus x squared over x to the 4. And that even can do 1 minus x, 1 plus x over x to the 4th. I'm just showing you that all kind of math can be derived from here. You can factor out the most negative. What we're going to do exactly the same thing on this particular case. We're going to factor out the most negative GCF. In this case, what will be the GCF between this term and this term?
Negative 1.
1 minus x squared to the which power? Negative 1/2, because this one is going to be the most negative. Does that make sense? Also, what? Besides that, what else I can factor out? I don't think 2x is good because just x.
3a. Why are you choosing the most negative one as your GCF?
My answer is, why do I choose most negative? I always choose negative because in this case, right, x squared is most negative, so I factor out x squared. In this case, I'm gonna choose the most negative. Let's call greatest common factor. It's always choose the most negative. Now, once you factor out, what do you have left, right? So we're gonna look at the first term. We're gonna say, well, we no longer have x, it's gone. But if you factor out this, it'd be 1/2 minus negative 1/2. So it'd be 1/2 plus 1/2. So it'd be 1. So it will actually be 2 times 1 minus x squared. Because the x is out, the 2 still there, so this 2 still there, right? This one is to factor out negative half, so you will change 1/2 minus negative 1/2, so it becomes positive 1/2. And the second part is going to be plus this. You're going to say, well, I have a negative x left. No, negative x squared left, because this one is completely factored out, right? This is completely factored out, so that you're going to have x squared left. So it's going to be x squared, but it's negative. Why is it negative? Because there was a negative sign there. And then you're going to say that's going to be 2 minus 2x squared minus x squared. And that's going to be 2 minus 3x squared, 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2 times x. You can even change your answer to x times 2 minus 3x squared over square root of 1 minus x squared. So that should be the final most simplified. Now, if I ever want to find slope, I will stop right here, plug in the x is equal to 1 or x is equal to 2. If I want to find out the derivative in the most simplified form, I want to factor out the most negative.
Wait, so but how did you get like the green part again? Like, that you...
So again, I'm factoring out the most negative. So this one, I take it out. If I take it out, also I'm going to take out x because they both have x. So the GCF is going to be x and 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2, right?
Yeah.
So if I factor out an x, I left with 2 left. So this is a 2 right here. Now, if I factor out negative 1/2, this is actually going to subtract negative 1/2. So that's 1/2 minus negative 1/2. That becomes a positive. And for this term, this is completely factored out because negative 1/2 is completely outside. So the only term I have left is negative x. Negative x squared, because actually negative x squared, because this one's factored out in the front. Because this is the x right here. So you have this left, you have this. Okay. So that's called factor out the most negative. You guys can try it. And the question I want you to try is actually, this is the only homework question you have, is f of x equal to x over root 2x minus 1. And I want you to find horizontal tangent. Okay, so that's the practice of chain rule and product rule and everything else. So that's that. So you guys can try this question, see if you can work out with another student, figure out. Finding horizontal tangent, everything need to be in factor form. So that's why we need to factor out the most negative. A lot of times says people, I don't need to factor out the most negative. Well, that's not true, because if I want to find horizontal tangent, I need to change everything to factor form. Okay, so yeah, this is one question. Actually, 2 questions. I'm going to give you a second one. This one, I just want you to find out the derivative.
Students, the time is now 2:55. If you are not under the supervision of a coach or a teacher, please exit the school campus now.
Okay, so try it. The test question is very similar to this one. So you're going to worry about your next test as well, besides you're going to go over your previous test. You can choose to use the quotient rule. You can use to choose the product rule. You're gonna go already? I thought you said you can stay 2 days. Huh?
I can stay for a little bit every day, but Monday is the day that I can stay for the longest.
Okay. You need to take the MT test home and then go through it all.
I have the empty test.
And once you find the answer, you should go back to see the graph, see if you have horizontal tangent on that x value. +4. Let's go over 1. Well, you know how to do that. Now what's the low, D high, high, D low. Derivative of x.
It's just right if I do like.
What's that back out of?
Yeah.